Hello, gentle soul. Tonight, I invite you to settle in and let your heart rest for a while. We are about to walk softly through the story and questions of King Solomon. A man once said to be the wisest of his time. His thoughts drifted far and deep, searching for meaning in all things, joy, sadness, success, even his own wisdom. Here we listen, not for grand answers, but for comfort and companionship in our own search. Before we begin, would you like to leave a message for others who are listening along this journey? Sometimes a few words can warm someone else's night. And if these stories help you find a bit of peace, remember to subscribe so we can meet again for another quiet moment. Now, breathe with me. Let's start our journey with Solomon. Quietly, slowly, together. Let me tell you a little about Solomon. He was the son of King David, and from a young age, his life was touched by both blessing and responsibility. When Solomon became king, the people of Israel looked to him for guidance, and he prayed for something different than wealth or power. He asked for wisdom, a heart that could understand. It is said that God listened to his request and made him wiser than any ruler before or after. People traveled from distant lands just to hear him speak. His words were gentle rivers of thought, filled with riddles and insights, tender stories, and deep questions. What is the meaning of all our work? He'd wonder aloud to his scribes. Will the sun not rise again tomorrow, just as it always has? Solomon's reign was long and peaceful. Gardens bloomed under his care, palaces rose in the city, music filled the nights, and the courts were alive with laughter and debate. The nation prospered, and tales of his wisdom spread beyond Israel's borders. Yet behind every wise answer, there were still mysteries that kept Solomon awake. Sometimes he would look at the crowds, at women and men carrying their burdens, at the laughter of children chasing each other in the palace halls, and he'd smile softly, then wonder what all this beauty really meant, how much it would last. Servants spoke in hushed tones about their king's mind, so sharp that it could split a thought in two, but sometimes so heavy that it seemed to weigh down his whole body. Despite all he had, Solomon seemed to search for something more. Have you ever known someone who has everything, yet quietly looks for purpose? Perhaps you have felt that way yourself, in silent moments when the world is still. Solomon was not harsh or distant. Sometimes he would walk among the people, stopping to listen to the simplest stories, asking gentle questions. What brings you joy? What do you hope for when you wake? He listened and remembered. Wise and admired as he was, Solomon was still deeply human. He loved music, poetry, and the colors of a cool morning. He cherished moments with his family and friends, sharing bread, pausing to listen to laughter echo through the palace courtyards. In those moments, perhaps, he wished time would hold still just a little longer. And yet, when the celebrations faded into night, he often found himself alone with his thoughts, his questions swirling like the wind beyond the palace walls. It is an old thing, to want to know the shape of life, to hunger for more than answers can give. So tonight, we draw near to that king, not for his power or his fame, but for the honest search inside him. We step into Solomon's world, where wisdom is both a bright light and a gentle shadow, a source of hope and sometimes of sorrow. Breathe in and keep close. We are just beginning to listen for the echoes of a wise king's heart. The palace was quiet tonight, its walls brushed with the soft blue of moonlight. Beyond the grand windows, the city of Jerusalem slept in gentle hushes, each rooftop nestled under a wide, unending sky. Inside his chamber, Solomon stood alone. He drew open the curtains, letting the night air drift in, cool and gentle, carrying the faint scents of cedar and jasmine from the gardens below. He gazed up, lost in the soft shimmer of stars scattered across the darkness. Their distant glow felt timeless, older than his kingdom, older than any story told among his people. For a while, he simply stood there, silent, listening to the pulse of the living night. Even a king could feel small under such a sky. Somewhere in the palace, a lamp flickered. Somewhere, a servant whispered goodnight. But Solomon remained quiet, his mind gently turning over old questions, new questions, questions without names. He let out a deep breath. How many kings have stood here before me, looking at these same stars? He wondered softly, as if asking the night to answer. And after me, who will stand here, searching the sky for meaning? A gentle breeze stirred the curtains. Solomon pressed his hand to the cool stone of the window, feeling the silence settle deeper. His thoughts drifted to the life outside his doors. The merchants folding their cloth for the next day, families tucking children into sleep, a dog barking far off, a cup left empty on a wooden table, somewhere no one could see. The world, so full of activity by day, was softened now into mystery and quiet hope. Solomon closed his eyes, listening. He could almost hear the songs of shepherds in the hills, the clinking coins of traders beneath the moon, the slow hush of rivers making their way to the sea. Isn't it strange, Solomon whispered, how everything rests, yet my heart still wanders? The room was empty, but for him. But wasn't he in some way less alone because others too watched the same sky? Maybe you've felt that way. In your own quiet room at night, have you ever looked out and longed for something you couldn't quite name? Solomon let the question linger. Above him, a shooting star crossed the heavens, quick, bright, gone. He pressed his brow against the window frame, feeling the longing settle in like a companion he knew well. Out there, the night was endless. In here, a wise king stood awake, wondering, watching, waiting for a wisdom that would calm his restless heart. Another deep breath, another long look at the stars. And so, the palace was silent, while Solomon and the sky kept each other company, two old friends beneath the great unfolding night. Alone in the gentle glow of the night, Solomon let himself breathe a little slower. He sat by his window, robe gathered around his shoulders, the stones cool and familiar beneath his feet. For a moment, he did not try to be king or wise man or judge of Israel. He was simply a soul, quietly searching. He spoke softly, as if confessing to the night itself. Some days, I feel as if I have tasted everything this world can offer. I have seen glory and joy, laughter and music, kings and commoners. I have studied the words of the elders and listened to the songs of the children. Yet still, there is a question that does not leave me. Why do our hearts always look for more? His words lingered, gentle and uncertain. He remembered the celebrations, the wisdom spoken in the palace halls, the gold that gleamed in his treasury. These things shimmered in the light. But when he looked inside, deeper than the throne, deeper than any crown, there was a quiet ache beneath all the splendor. What does it all mean, if it will pass away? He murmured, voice carrying only to the stones and the night wind. Even kings are carried on the same earthly river as anyone else. All our building, all our learning, do they truly last? He closed his eyes. The silence wrapped around him like a comforting shawl, but even comfort could not erase the gentle tide of doubt. Solomon pressed his hand to his heart and asked, "If I am the wisest, why do I sometimes feel the loneliest?" Somewhere, an owl called from the trees. The sound washed through the room, tender as a lullaby. Maybe you know what Solomon felt, sitting quietly, searching for meaning in a world that sometimes feels too wide, too fleeting. Have you ever kept a question close to your heart, uncertain if it could ever be answered? Solomon let his questions float on the night air, as if hoping the wind would carry them to someone who understood. He whispered, "Tell me, O night, where can a restless soul find true rest? If not in riches or wisdom or pleasure, then where? The flickering lamplight danced gently across the room, much like his thoughts, moving always, never settling. His confession was not of weakness, but of honesty. Even a wise king was allowed to wonder, to wish for a peace deeper than understanding. Sitting still, Solomon listened for a reply. The world, for a brief moment, felt tender and holy, full of space for questions, full of patience for doubt. He stayed like this, without answers, letting the night be his companion, hoping perhaps the simple act of asking was its own kind of wisdom. In the quiet, Solomon's thoughts began to wander through the winding corridors of memory. He listened to the silence, but in his mind, the echo of time was unmistakable, like a river always flowing, never turning back. The night air seemed to carry the scents of old springs, the warmth of summers past, the golden drift of many autumns, and the hush of winters already gone. He whispered to himself, gentle as a sigh, "How often have I watched the sun rise over these hills and set behind the same walls? The dawn comes, the night returns, over and over again. Yet each day I feel both older and smaller in the face of it all." He thought of the city outside his window, streets empty now, but in the morning, filled with footsteps repeating their daily dance, bakers kneading dough as their fathers did, children running where their mothers once played, men and women at their markets living out the same rhythms year after year. The rivers run to the sea, but the sea is never full, Solomon murmured, letting the ancient thought find a home in his heart. Generations come and go, and the earth remains. Everything changes, yet everything stays the same. He leaned his head against the cool stones, and for a moment, the weight of repetition pressed upon him. Was there anything truly new? Or did every fresh hope carry hidden traces of what had come before? "My eyes have seen much," he breathed. "But can they ever see enough?" His voice was almost lost in the hush, as if meant for no one but himself. Maybe you have wondered too. How many times have you watched the same season return, the same old street bathed in new sunlight, the same breeze stirring the same leaves? Have you ever felt the slow turning of days, each both precious and strangely alike? Solomon let these memories and questions drift with the moonlight. He pictured the craftsmen repeating their careful work, the scribes copying words line after line, the sweep of the palace roof freshly painted, yet weathered just the time by the next storm. The cycle of things moved quietly but surely, like breaths, like heartbeats, like prayers quietly spoken and answered only by the steady passage of time. "I search for meaning in all these days," he whispered, "but the world spins on. Perhaps there is beauty in the turning, if I have eyes to see it." For a long while, Solomon was still, letting the comfort and ache of the passing years hold him gently. And as he felt the slow rhythm of time, he wondered if, just maybe, the answer was not in escaping the cycle, but in learning how to dwell within it, with curiosity, with gratitude, and with peace. Solomon's mind wanders deeper into the quiet, where thoughts echo soft and low. He leaned closer to the open window, looking out at Jerusalem's sleeping rooftops, and a sadness moved gently through him, a question that weighed more than all his gold. He spoke, not to anyone in particular, but to the silent night. "What is the worth of all our striving? These gardens, these halls, these songs in my court, will they last? I have built, I have gathered, I have learned, but what remains when all is done?" His words fell into the shadows, unhurried and honest. It was a melody of longing, gentle, deep, and slow. He thought of the palaces that rose by his command, the wisdom spoken to kings and pilgrims who traveled from far lands. Would their footsteps echo forever? Or would time sweep even his story away, leaving only dust and memory, names, half remembered. He closed his eyes and let a gentle, silent sigh rise from within. If a man gives his whole strength to work, pours out his heart for a dream, what does he gain in the very end? His voice was quiet, yet in its stillness there was a longing heard across centuries. Imagine, if you will, that for a moment you stood beside Solomon. Perhaps you would agree with his sadness, or maybe you would hold hope that what we make and give in love is not so quickly lost. What do you think? Does anything lasting blossom from all our hard work? Or does it simply pass like the night breeze? Solomon waited, listening to the soft darkness, as if the night itself might answer. A gentle silence lingered, a friend to honest questions. Shifting quietly in the moonlight, he spoke to himself, soft as a confession. All things pass away. All our plans, our cleverness, even our stories, they slip through our fingers, yet still I keep searching. Perhaps the search itself is a kind of hope, a kind of living song. His heart ached, but with it came wonder, a gentle wish to find meaning even among things that fade. In that stillness, shadows and questions mingled, wrapping him in their quiet company, until only his breathing and the slow turning of thoughts remained. From his window, Solomon looked out over the quiet city, hidden beneath a soft veil of moonlight. During the day, these streets overflowed with life, children chasing one another, merchants calling out from their stalls, women carrying jars balanced on strong shoulders, laughter echoing through the markets, voices rising and falling like a never-ending song. But now, under the hush of night, the city seemed gentle, almost fragile. Solomon's gaze traveled beyond the palace walls, past the gardens, to where humble roofs sheltered dreams and worries. He imagined the people who filled his kingdom. Some, he knew, ended their day with singing. Families gathered in small warm rooms, giving thanks for bread and rest. Others lay awake, turning over troubles in the dim darkness, carrying the weight of hopes and disappointments. He leaned forward and wondered aloud, what stirs in their hearts tonight? Joy or sorrow? Contentment or longing yet unmet? He thought of a woman smiling as she braided her daughter's hair before bed, a young man quietly grieving for a loved one lost too soon, an old couple sharing stories from younger days, laughter trailing off into comfortable silence. All different, yet all part of the same world he watched from above. Solomon sighed, feeling both near and far from his people. Sometimes, he whispered, a king is surrounded by many, yet feels the loneliness of knowing so many lives move beyond his reach. There was no shame in the softness of his words, just a longing to understand, to hold joy and sorrow together with gentle hands. Perhaps you too have observed the people around you, strangers in the street, family at your table, friends who come and go. Each face holds its secret story. Each heart carries both laughter and tears. Have you ever paused just to wonder how those near you are really feeling tonight? Solomon allowed himself this moment of reflection. He felt the depth of being human, so much happiness that could slip in quietly, like dawn's first light, and so much sadness that needed to be carried, sometimes in silence. From his window, the king's eyes grew softer, and his heart, though still full of questions, felt a simple connection to everyone who lived under that same blanket of stars. And perhaps in that moment, the world seemed a little smaller, a little kinder, a place of shared longing and gentle hope, where joy and sorrow danced quietly together through the night. The quiet was gently broken by a soft shuffle of sandals on the palace floor. A servant, young and carrying the stillness of the night in his step, appeared at the doorway, pausing with humility. He bowed his head, uncertain of whether the king wished to be disturbed. Solomon turned, offering a tired but warm smile. "You may come in," he said, his voice gentle as a whispered secret. The servant stepped closer, glancing at the stars through the window. He carried a small tray with figs, honey, and a little wine, thoughtful gifts for late hours. "Your Majesty," the servant said quietly, "I noticed you had not slept yet. I hoped you might be hungry." Solomon accepted the tray, nodding his gratitude. "Thank you," he replied. "It is a comfort in a quiet night." The servant hesitated, then spoke softly. "Sometimes, when I cannot sleep, I listen to the wind and think of my mother telling stories by the fire. Is it strange to miss simple things, even on the best of days?" Solomon's eyes brightened, touched by the honesty. "No, it is not strange at all. Often I find myself longing for simple joys, moments shared, laughter remembered, warmth in the cold hours," he answered. They stood in silence, sharing the presence of the night and the easy understanding that comes from being known, even for a moment. The servant smiled shyly. "My mother used to say, 'A good story makes even the longest night feel shorter.'" Solomon chuckled softly, the sound echoing in the still room. "She is wise," he said. "Stories and kindness are gifts above gold." The servant lingered, sensing perhaps that even a king needed a friend sometimes. "Would you like me to draw the curtains, my king? Or leave them open so you can see the stars as you rest?" "Let them stay open," Solomon replied, voice gentle with gratitude. "Tonight, I would like the company of the stars." The servant bowed again, his presence leaving a warmth behind as he slipped quietly from the room. Left alone, Solomon tasted a fig, sweet against the quiet. The comfort of that simple exchange brought a small light to his restless heart, a reminder that kindness and gentle conversation could ease even the wisest man's worries, at least for a little while. After the servant left, Solomon sat quietly by his window, the tray of figs and honey beside him, the room filled with peaceful night air. He looked out again at the stars, thoughtful, and let his mind settle into gentle reflection. He spoke quietly, mostly to himself. "I have spent so much of my life seeking wisdom. I asked for it as a young king, thinking knowledge would give me strength and peace. Yet, the more I learn, the more I discover how much remains a mystery." A soft question filled his heart. Can anyone ever truly grasp all there is to know? Or does wisdom simply show us how vast the unknown truly is? He smiled, a little wryly, tasting the sweetness of honey on his tongue. Memories of long hours spent with scrolls and teachers, debates under olive trees, and endless court sessions drifted through his mind. How many times had he listened, advised, judged, and pondered, hoping to gather truth as one would gather grain at harvest? He thought aloud, his tone gentle and a little weary. Wisdom can shine like a lamp, but its light also shows the edges of shadows, spaces where answers hide and silence lingers. Sometimes, I wonder if the burden of knowing is heavier than the comfort of not knowing. He paused, then let out a sigh that was oddly comforting. Is it enough to simply ask, to search, to wonder? Or should I be content with the little I can truly understand? Perhaps you have felt this way too. Have you ever reached for answers only to find new questions waiting behind them? Do you wonder where the edges of your own understanding end? Or if peace comes not from certainty, but from gentle acceptance of what cannot be known? Solomon lifted his eyes, letting the night be his teacher. He felt the quietness stretch out before him, both humbling and kind. In this moment, wisdom was not a prize to be grasped, but a winding path, a journey taken in hope, with room for doubt and space for wonder. He let his thoughts drift softly with the calm night air, accepting that even the wisest heart could rest in the gentle mystery of all that would always remain just beyond knowing. Now, dear friend, as we sit quietly in Solomon's company, let me turn for a moment and speak softly to your heart. Like Solomon, you too carry questions that whisper in the quiet moments, don't you? Maybe you ask them when you look out your own window or as you close your eyes at the end of the day. Questions about meaning, about love, about the shape your life is taking. What are the questions you quietly hold close, sometimes afraid to speak them aloud? Where does your mind wander when the world grows still? It's all right if you don't have all the answers. It's even all right if your questions have no shape or name. Sometimes it's enough to feel their presence, soft and honest, as you travel through each day and night. In the hush of this story, let your own questions arise without fear. Think of Solomon, wise and wondering, king and child at heart, not ashamed to admit his searching. You too are allowed to wonder, to seek and to dream. If you want, you can whisper your questions into the night, release them gently, and trust that you are not alone. We all walk our journeys with invisible questions at our side, and as we listen to Solomon, let your heart be as gentle with yourself as he is, with grace for the doubts, patience for the waiting, and kindness toward the mysteries that make us human. Take a deep breath. Feel the comfort of knowing that every honest question is a companion, and that the journey matters just as much as the answers. Rest a while with your own gentle wondering before we continue on with Solomon's story. In the shadowed quiet, Solomon leaned against the window frame, feeling the steady rhythm of his own breath rise and fall. He closed his eyes, letting the warmth of the night and the gentle memories of conversation with the servant linger in his heart. Yet, as the moments passed, another feeling touched him, a heaviness that wisdom sometimes brings. He sighed softly. There are nights, he admitted, hardly louder than the hush around him, when the weight of knowing's almost too much to bear. The more I see, the more I feel the ache of this world. How lonely it is to understand so much, and still not find the rest for which I long. His own words felt like a confession whispered into darkness. He remembered the faces of those who sought his counsel, hoping for answers that would mend their hearts. Yet even as he spoke wisdom to others, he could not always mend his own troubled soul. I have seen joy and beauty. I have listened to sorrow and loss. Every joy is fleeting, every sorrow deep. Sometimes it is as if every corner of my mind is lit, yet my heart remains hidden in shadow. His voice trembled gently, made tender not by weakness, but by truth. He pressed his hand to his brow, longing for quiet within. Perhaps you too have known those hours when wisdom feels more a burden than a blessing, when knowing the hurts and hopes of the world leaves you weary, when you wish to simply rest without thought or striving. Solomon opened his eyes and gazed again at the stars, seeking comfort in their stillness. If I could forget, just for a night, all that I have learned, would I find peace? Or is it the path of the wise to feel the world's sadness and somehow let it turn into understanding, into gentleness for others, into compassion that soothes the suffering and multiplies the joy? A gentle breeze touched his face, as if the night itself wished to comfort him. So Solomon breathed out the heaviness and whispered to the silence, "Let me rest, if only for a while. Let the wisdom that sometimes exhausts me become, tonight, a soft bed for my tired heart." There he rested in spirit, wise, weary, honest, and open to quiet comfort. Alone but not forsaken, longing for the gift of true rest, as the mysteries of the night watched over him in peace. In the gentle dimness before dawn, Solomon rose quietly and wandered through the halls of his great palace. The marble floors were cool beneath his feet, and his footsteps echoed softly, the sound swallowed up by the vastness of the place he had built. He walked past carved pillars and archways, bathed in the silver glow drifting through high windows. Beyond the palace walls, gardens stretched far and wide, their paths winding through rows of almond and fig trees, fountains murmuring softly, flowers leaning sleepily toward the promise of morning. Solomon paused in his favorite courtyard, where olive trees stood in quiet ranks. Here, he gazed upon the gardens and palaces, work of his hands, fruit of his vision. There were benches of sandalwood, pools of clear water rimmed with fragrant lilies, sculptures shaped like birds at rest, and in every corner, signs of beauty and care. He breathed in the scent of blooming jasmine, letting it fill him with memories of plans carefully drawn, of workers laughing under the sun, of joyful celebrations when a new garden opened or a hall stood finished. For a moment, a gentle satisfaction warmed him. He remembered, with a soft smile, the day he walked the new gardens with his mother, her delight shining in her eyes. He recalled banquets where guests marveled at the rich colors and peaceful order, the way the very stones seemed to hum with life and blessing. Yet even as happiness touched his heart, it slipped through his fingers like water. The feeling was bright but brief, a flash of sunlight caught in the morning dew. He loved these things he had made, loved their beauty, their order, their peace. But part of him wondered how long it all would last, and if these creations could offer him what he truly sought. He touched the smooth ivory seat by the fountain and whispered, "You are beautiful. This is good. Yet still, my heart keeps searching." The gardens, in their silent wisdom, seemed to listen and understand. Have you ever accomplished something you waited for, built something with your own hands or heart, and felt gladness sweep over you, only to realize it would never be enough by itself? That there is always some longing, some gentle emptiness, even in the midst of beauty. Solomon stood quietly among the flowers, letting his satisfaction and his yearning mingle together in the honeyed morning air. Even the wisest, even a king, knew the sweetness of a dream fulfilled, and the soft ache of wanting something more. As dawn crept softly across the courtyard, Solomon heard gentle footsteps behind him. It was his queen, rising early as she sometimes did, her presence bringing a quiet warmth to the cool morning. She drew her shawl close, smiling as she approached her husband among the olive trees. "Could you not sleep?" she asked, her voice low and kind, still wrapped in the peace of night. Solomon shook his head gently, a small, weary smile on his lips. "My thoughts were too many, and the palace too silent," he replied. For a moment, she stood beside him, both of them gazing out over the gardens, the work of his hands, the visions of his nights. "You've built so much," she said softly, looking at the paths and fountains and the sun slowly rising beyond the rooftops. "Your father would have been proud to see this beauty. Sometimes I walk here in the afternoon and think of how far we have come." Solomon listened, letting her words comfort him. "It is good," he agreed, "but sometimes even beauty makes my heart restless. I wonder if all I've done is truly enough." She placed her hand gently over his. "You have brought peace and abundance to our people, joy to our home, and laughter to our children. Yes, the gardens are lovely, the music is sweet, but I think your kindness is what matters most. We do our best, Solomon, and that is enough." He turned toward her, his eyes softening. "Thank you," he said with quiet gratitude. It is easy to forget there is goodness in what has been given, not only in what is still missing. She smiled, squeezing his hand. "Walk with me," she invited, and together they moved beneath the olive branches, side by side. The air was cool. Their steps were slow and gentle. The world around them new with dawn. Even a wise king needs reminders that love is in the simple moments, and achievements hold their richest meaning when shared. In her gentle words, Solomon found a peace that sometimes escaped even his deepest searching, a peace that came not through answers or wonderings, but through the quiet presence of someone who loved him, simply and truly. Later that morning, after the queen had gone to tend to her day, Solomon remained for a little while beneath the trees. The gardens glimmered with dew. each leaf and petal catching the golden light. He wandered slowly along the paths, thinking about all the treasures that had come to him, wealth beyond imagination, rooms filled with precious things, tables set with delicacies, musicians and poets ready to fill any night with song and beauty. He sat down by the fountain, listening to the gentle trickle of water. "I have known pleasure," Solomon whispered into the hush. "Fine wine, sweet fruit, laughter echoing in grand halls, journeys to distant lands. I have tasted the best of what this world can give." For a moment, he let the memories wash over him. Festivals where joy was as thick in the air as the scent of blooming myrtle, cups raised high, smiles warm and unburdened, feasts that stretched late into the night. His heart beat with echoes of those pleasures, and yet, as he sat quietly, he noticed a soft emptiness growing inside, an ache like longing that refuses to be satisfied with what wealth or feasting can bring. He spoke to the cool morning air. "But every pleasure fades, sooner or later. Laughter dims to a memory, sweet things turn bitter, and all gold loses its shine. Why does the joy of these things pass so quickly, like mist before the sun?" Solomon gazed at his own reflection in the fountain's water. The face he saw was wise and strong, yet there was an unmistakable gentleness in his eyes, a touch of sadness known only to those who have had much, and still yearn for something deeper. He thought, not for the first time, that the heart's true hunger cannot be filled by what is owned or consumed or even celebrated. What remains, he wondered aloud, when every pleasure is gone? What fills the emptiness when all the songs are quiet? Perhaps you have felt this too, after moments of great happiness, when the world is especially bright. And yet, a quiet question remains when everything else grows still. Solomon let this gentle emptiness remain in him, not in anger, but as a quiet companion. He watched the water ripple, listened to the birds waking, and accepted that even a king, wrapped in gold and surrounded by joy, can still long for something more, a joy that does not fade or pass away. In the daylight, Solomon wandered through his kingdom, quietly observing the people at their work. He saw the stonecutters shaping blocks for a new gate, their strong arms lifting and turning each heavy piece. He watched the potter at his wheel, hands stained with clay, spinning simple earth into vessels for bread and water. Bakers pulled loaves of fresh bread from glowing ovens. Shepherds called out to their flocks on distant hills. Everywhere he looked, there was movement and purpose. Men and women rising early, returning late, their lives a pattern of labor and rest. Solomon paused beneath a fig tree, mindful of each scene, each small act that built the days and nights of his kingdom. He thought quietly, all of this toil, all these hours, what is the purpose of it truly? Do we work to fill our bellies, to build houses, to gather wine for our tables? Perhaps we seek honor, or safety, or comfort, but at the heart of it, what remains when the dust settles and the fields are empty? A child ran past him, chasing a rolling apple, bright laughter trailing after. At a market stall, a woman traded eggs for onions, her hands quick, but her eyes tired. Near the city gates, elders rested under a tree, sharing bread and stories, content in each other's company. Solomon realized, it is not only the great buildings or clever inventions, but the ordinary rhythms, bread broken, hands joined, laughter shared, that give shape to our lives. He spoke softly, almost to himself. I have worked and built, planned and ordered, but what of the gentle, quiet labors? What of the kindness that moves unseen, the care in the folding of a blanket, the light in a word spoken at the right time? He remembered festivals when the entire kingdom sang together, the way even strangers became friends over a shared meal. He saw the beauty in faces marked by sun and seasons, the pride of a father teaching his son, the quiet joy of women drawing water together at the well. Maybe you too have wondered about the reason for your work or felt the weight of daily tasks. Solomon's heart softened as he watched these scenes, a king learning from the people he led. Perhaps the greatest purpose of our work, he mused gently, is not just in what we win or build, but in what we share. The simple blessings, contentment, kindness, the presence of others, turn each ordinary hour into something sacred. He let this thought rest quietly within him, grateful for the ordinary moments that, together, made his kingdom come alive. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Solomon's mind wandered back to days and nights filled with celebration. He recalled the feasts that brought the whole palace to life, tables heavy with food, wine poured freely, music swirling through great halls until laughter seemed to melt into the very walls. He remembered the joy on his people's faces, the way voices blended in song, the dance of candlelight reflected in wide, shining eyes, evenings when friends gathered close and worries were forgotten, if only for a time. There were moments when the king himself would raise a cup and say with warmth in his voice, "Tonight, let us drink to the goodness before us and to the hope that tomorrow holds." Those memories were bright and golden, sweet as honey to the soul. Yet now, as Solomon thought of those many joyful times, he felt a softness, a hollow, gentle as the hush that follows when music finally fades. He spoke softly to himself. The halls are silent now, the cups empty, the songs only echoes within these stone walls. Why does joy, no matter how great, slip through our hands like water? He let his heart linger with this ache, not fighting it, but feeling it fully. The laughter, the fullness of celebration, the coming together of friends, they were beautiful, but never enough to fill the quiet that returned once the feasts had ended. Maybe you've felt it too. That sense of something missing, even after the best days. A longing that stirs softly in the stillness left behind. Solomon did not scold himself for longing, nor did he try to grasp for joy that had already passed. Instead, he allowed both the sweet and the empty to rest within him, as two parts of the same story. He lifted his eyes to the quieting sky and whispered, "Perhaps it is the space left by joy that teaches us how deeply we are made to long, how much we are meant to hope." He listened to the silence, letting both memory and longing keep him company, gentle as twilight. For even as the music faded, there was meaning in the hush that followed, room for gratitude, and for the hope of joy yet to come. One late afternoon, as the shadows grew long and gentle across the palace gardens, Solomon came upon a familiar face, a friend from years ago, someone who had known him before crowns and wisdom, before gardens and gold. His friend was sitting beneath a blossoming tree, quietly plucking at an old lyre. When Solomon drew near, the man looked up and smiled, his eyes bright with memory and affection. "It has been a long while, my king," he said, laughter sparkling in his tone. Solomon returned the smile, warmth and longing settling softly in his chest. "Too long," he replied, easing down onto the grass beside him. "When did our lives grow so far apart?" The friend shrugged lightly, a gentle teasing in his eyes. "I remember nights when we slept under the stars and made plans to conquer the world, though I don't recall any palaces in those dreams, only stories and laughter." Solomon laughed quietly, the sound mingling with the birds and the distant murmuring of fountains. "Sometimes I miss those days, when the world was simpler and joy came easy." They sat together, letting the silence fill with comfort. For a while, the friend played a quiet melody, and Solomon listened, eyes closed, heart stirred by memories. The music was plain, honest, sweet threads weaving back to campfires, boyhood games, and promises whispered in darkness. After the song faded, Solomon said softly, "Do you ever wonder if anything stays the same?" His friend looked at him with care. "I think love remains, even as time passes. Friendship remembers, and laughter has a way of finding us again, especially when we sit beneath old trees." Solomon nodded, moved by the simplicity and truth in the words. "You say much with so little," he mused, gratitude shining in his eyes. They sat until the shadows grew long and the first stars blinked awake above the garden. For a little while, Solomon wasn't just a king or a wise man. He was a friend among friends, a soul welcomed back to the heart of who he had always been. Perhaps tonight you remember too, someone or some moment that shaped you gently and lives on in your heart whenever you pause to listen. Solomon cherished this, carried quietly in the warmth of old friendship, and let a deep peace settle in his spirit as evening deepened around them. As evening deepened and the last notes of his friend's song faded, Solomon rested his hands in his lap and turned his thoughts gently toward you. The gardens around him were quiet, the air warm with memories and soft with hope. He spoke not just to himself, but as if you were beside him, sharing in the gentle hush. "I have searched far and wide for what truly brings joy to the heart," he said quietly. "I have found happiness in many places, among friends, in quiet labor, in moments of beauty and laughter. But I have learned that joy is more than anything we can earn or gather." He looked at the sky, light scattering above the rooftops, and asked softly, "What is it then that fills your heart with real joy? Is it the love you share? The peace you find in small things? The silent moments when grace touches your spirit?" Solomon let the question linger, open and kind. We spend much of our lives chasing after many things, hoping they will satisfy our longing. But the joy that stays, the joy that truly warms us, is often simple, springing up in places we did not expect. Perhaps you too have felt joy arrive quietly, when a friend sits close, when a kind word is spoken, when you watch children at play or sunlight rippling on water. Maybe it finds you in an old story or in forgiveness or in a gentle hope. He smiled, voice gentle with invitation. If you have found something that brings you light, even for a moment, hold it close, and if you are still searching, do not grow weary. Sometimes the truest joys arrive softly, in ways that surprise us. In the peace of the fading day, Solomon offered his challenge, softer than a whisper, but deeper than any wisdom he had spoken before. Take a quiet moment and ask yourself, what truly brings you joy? Honor it, seek it, share it. In such small, honest joys, we find a meaning greater than gold. Then the king rested, letting the question and its hope drift into the twilight, leaving space for your own heart to answer, softly and truly, as the night slowly unfolded its peace. The night began to fade, and a gentle hush settled over the palace gardens as the first light of dawn touched the world with gold. Solomon rose early, stepping outside to stand in the cool freshness of morning. All around him, the earth seemed to breathe in peace, the air damp with dew, the sky turning softly from indigo to blush, the quiet broken only by a bird's gentle call. He paused beneath an arching olive branch and watched the sky change. Colors shifted slowly, tender and calm. In those silent moments, Solomon felt the beauty of something eternal, happening with each new day. The slow birth of light from darkness. The world renewed quietly and without fanfare. The garden leaves held tiny pearls of water, sparkling in the pale rays. Each one trembled and shone for a moment before slipping away, and Solomon wondered at the mystery. Every day born fresh, yet always drawing the past softly into the present. He did not speak aloud, but his heart whispered, "How many sunrises have I seen, and how many yet remain? What silent truths does each day carry, that I miss in my rush and worry. He stood for a long while in stillness, letting morning wash over him. The palace walls behind him seemed softer, less imposing, humbled by the gentle arrival of light. For a moment, everything felt new. His heart, the earth, the winding paths of the garden, even the stones beneath his feet were warm from hope. Maybe you've felt it too, that quiet wonder as the day begins, when worries fall away, and you belong to the silence and softness of dawn. Solomon breathed in deeply, letting the gift of this simple morning remind him that life's truest beauty is not always found in answers, but in witnessing the small miracles that unfold as each day quietly begins. And as the sun rose fully, casting gentle warmth on everything it touched, Solomon stood in silence. At peace for now, with the mystery that dances in every new beginning. As the day woke gently around him, Solomon strolled slowly along the garden paths, the soft light warming his face and the tips of his fingers. The simple routine felt comforting. The weight of a robe on his shoulders, the low sound of his footsteps on stone, the hush of leaves moving with the early breeze. He thought about the many days he had lived, the sunrises, the meals, the meetings, the laughter, and the quiet moments by himself. So much of life, he mused softly, is carrying out the rhythm of small things, waking and working, eating and resting, holding a hand, saying a kind word, watching the flowers open with the light. He noticed how easily his thoughts could slip into searching for something bigger, something that would explain every shadow and longing. Yet now, as bees hummed lazily in the blooming rosemary, Solomon questioned if maybe, just maybe, the meaning he sought was threaded through this gentle routine itself. He spoke to the rising sun, voice as soft as the breeze. Isn't there a kind of holiness in the ordinary? A peace in simply doing what this day brings? In being present to each small gift, each moment of quiet work, each shared smile? He thought of his people, those who rose with the dawn, who swept the streets, tended animals, baked bread or drew water at the well. Their lives, woven together in quiet faithfulness, created the heartbeat of the city. Wasn't their search for meaning the same as his, found not in great achievements alone, but in meeting the day with hope and humility? Maybe you have wondered, too, if you are missing the deeper story because your days are filled with simple things. But perhaps, Solomon pondered, the soul is fed and shaped not just by answers or grand moments, but by what we do again and again with love and presence. He lingered in the garden, letting the world move all around him, and felt gratitude grow where longing had been. For this day, in its gentle routine, was enough, and in that acceptance, even the mystery felt lighter, resting like sunlight in an open hand. Solomon rested on a stone bench beneath a tall fig tree, letting the morning's warmth settle around him. The gardens were alive with gentle sounds, a dove cooing softly, the quiet hum of bees. Still, a familiar ache stirred inside him, one that wisdom could not quiet. He lowered his head, speaking quietly. When I gaze at all I have accomplished, all these things and moments and thoughts, they seem to slip through my hands. It is as if I hold the wind. Everything I gather scatters before I can claim it for my own. The words left his heart heavy, but he did not turn away from them. He remembered late nights counting treasures, days spent judging and teaching, hours lost in reflection. What is left, truly, after so much striving? I see now how quickly it all passes, how effort, even wisdom, becomes like dust, swirling in the sunlight for but a moment. He exhaled, shoulders dropping with quiet surrender. Vanity, he whispered, using the word his heart had circled for so long. It is all vanity, chasing after meaning and never catching more than a shadow of it. Solomon raised his eyes, watching a butterfly rest briefly upon a leaf, then drift away. He saw the beauty and fragility mingled in its short life. For a moment, he envied its simple purpose, to move with the wind, to find sweetness where it was offered, and let go when the time came. Maybe you have felt that too. The sense that all your work, your learning, your searching sometimes leaves you with emptiness as well as accomplishment. Solomon's confession was not one of bitterness, but of truth. The wisdom that even the greatest achievements are a breath in the vastness of time. Yet in speaking the word, vanity, he found a tender honesty. Admitting his frustration was not the end, but a doorway. It humbled him, softened his heart, and made space for a gentler, truer way of seeing himself and the world. He sat for a long time beneath the fig tree, letting disappointment wash through him and leave its gift, a quiet, accepting peace amid the mystery. The world spun on, the garden glowed in the sunlight, and Solomon, emptied of pride, was content for now simply to be present in the midst of it all. In the hush beneath the trees, Solomon's heart became still. He watched as sunlight moved across the grass, shadows lengthening and fading, day quietly slipping into noon. His thoughts, softened by honesty, began to trace the simple truths of life. How everything has a time, and every story unfolds in seasons. He let his mind wander to the days of his own childhood, tiny feet chasing after his father's steps, hands eager to learn, eyes open to wonder. He remembered the thrill of growing, the tenderness of being taught, the way years moved swiftly, weaving childhood into youth, youth into the steady hands of a king. Solomon reflected gently, "There is a time to be born and a time to grow, a time to learn and a time to teach. There is laughter carried on spring breezes and quiet rest in winter's hush. All things change, wrapped tenderly in the passing of days." He gazed up at the branches above him, where new leaves trembled with possibility and older ones drifted slowly to earth. "As I have lived and watched, I see that every day adds another thread to the fabric of my soul. Even as things slip away, something beautiful is always unfolding." He thought of friends growing older, of children now parents, of seasons arriving and passing away, each bringing its own gift. He realized that beauty lies not only in youth or victory, but also in the slow wisdom of years, in the courage to accept what comes and let go when the time has passed. Now, I gently invite you to pause with Solomon. Consider your own days. Where are you in your season of life? What have you gained, and what have you allowed to fall softly to the ground? There is a quiet dignity in each stage, a sacred rhythm in every breath and every letting go. Breathe in, and notice the gentle trace of time in your own story. As the leaves change overhead, so do we, growing and releasing, gathering and giving away. In this, there is a beauty deeper than anything the eye sees, a beauty that belongs to every heart willing to notice its own changing seasons. As the afternoon sun poured gold onto the palace courtyard, Solomon found himself drawn to a quiet corner where a poet from his court sat weaving words into verse. The poet's eyes were gentle, his hands stained with ink, and his face bore the thoughtful lines of a man who had spent years watching beauty come and go. Solomon approached with a nod, and the poet looked up, meeting his king's gaze with warmth. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "the day is ripe for a story or a dream. What brings you to my quiet shade?" Solomon settled beside him, the air between them filled with unspoken understanding. "I have been thinking," Solomon confessed, "how swiftly beauty fades. The gardens bloom, the music plays, faces glow with happiness, yet all of it slips away with the turning sun. What do you think of this, my friend? Can anything lovely ever truly last?" The poet smiled, thoughtful and kind. "Beauty is a guest," he replied, voice as gentle as the wind. She visits without warning and leaves without farewell. But those who notice her, even for a breath, are changed by her presence. The memory of beauty can linger longer than its moment, like the scent of jasmine in the evening or the echo of an old song. Solomon listened to the words, letting their wisdom rest within him. So, even the fleeting has value, he mused. Perhaps it is the shortness that makes the lovely things so precious to us. The poet nodded, dipping his brush into ink. The rose that blooms for just a day gives her gift all the more sweetly. If we learned to see as poets do, savoring each bright hour, perhaps we would fear less the fading and love more the living. Silence drifted between king and poet, comfortable and deep. The poet offered a half-finished line of his verse. Beauty passes, yet in hearts awake to wonder, she leaves behind a gentle trace. Solomon smiled, gratitude warming his eyes. You have given me something to ponder, he said softly. Maybe it is not the loss of beauty, but the cherishing of it, for however long it lingers, that makes us wise. And in that shaded corner, beside a man whose words made the moment last, Solomon felt a quiet peace. He carried the poet's wisdom like a soft cloak, a reminder that beauty's true gift lies not in its endurance, but in its presence and the way it shapes a grateful heart. Wandering later through the palace gardens, Solomon's footsteps slowed as he heard laughter bubbling like a stream nearby. He followed the sound and discovered a group of children chasing each other among the olive trees. Their voices rang out in pure delight, small hands reaching for sunlight, little feet dancing in grass that glittered with the remains of morning dew. He watched them from a distance, a warm ache stirring quietly in his chest. The children played without worry or thought of tomorrow. Their joy was simple, found in the moment, in the game, in each other. Solomon remembered his own childhood for a heartbeat, the days when happiness needed nothing more than a breeze and a friend. He smiled as one of the youngest children fell gently onto the soft earth, giggling, as the others gathered around and pulled her up with laughter. To them, every trouble ended as soon as it began. There was always another chase, another story, another chance to try again. Softly, with honest longing, Solomon whispered, "How easily joy comes to the young. They do not judge or question the gift of this hour. They play, they trust, they hope, never holding yesterday or worrying after what's to come." He leaned against a tree, wishing he could recapture even a piece of that sweet innocence. For all his wisdom and riches, for every lesson learned, he found himself longing for the forgotten simplicity of wonder and trust. Perhaps you have felt this too. The memory of a time when you delighted in small things, when you were brave enough to simply be happy. Life's burdens had not yet grown heavy, and hope was as natural as breathing. Solomon watched the children until their game shifted and their laughter drifted down the garden path. In their play, he found a gentle reminder. Sometimes what the wise spend their lives searching for is not far away. Sometimes it is simply waiting in the sunlight, carried easily in the hearts of those who have not yet learned to be afraid. He offered a silent thanks for that glimpse, letting it soften his heart. The wise king, for a moment, was just a boy again, watching joy leap from shadow to sunlight, wishing only to remember how simple it can be to trust and to play. As the afternoon ripened and a gentle breeze moved through the palace gardens, Solomon found himself quiet and thoughtful, memories rising up like gentle waves. His mind drifted to the days when he was a child in his father's house, and his heart grew warm with remembrance. He recalled evenings when King David, his father, would sit by his side, the air filled with the sounds of harp and song. David's voice was soft, his words steady and kind. Sometimes he would place his hand on Solomon's shoulder, guiding him through the unfolding shadows of childhood with stories and gentle advice. My son, David would say, a wise heart listens before it speaks. Mercy will carry you further than strength, and kindness will win more than any sword. Solomon remembered how those words settled deep inside, shaping him as much as any lesson in the courts or books in the library. He thought of times when he struggled, moments of anger or fear, nights when the world felt too large to understand. In those times, David did not give harsh reprimand, but rather sat quietly, hand steady on Solomon's back, whispering, "You are not alone. Take courage and remember you are loved." Solomon smiled, eyes misty with gratitude. He realized how precious such guidance was, a lamp in the darkness, a soft place to return to in thought or dream. Even now, in his wisdom and age, those lessons glowed within him, gentle as candlelight. Perhaps you remember words once softly spoken to you, advice from someone who loved you, a parent, a grandparent, a friend. Maybe those words still echo when you need them most, helping you find your way. Solomon let the memory linger, feeling his father's presence with him in the stillness. In honoring the love and wisdom passed down to him, he found strength, quiet, enduring, and tender. The greatest kings, he thought, are sons and daughters first. All wisdom begins as a gentle word entrusted to a listening heart. As the breeze moved through the garden, Solomon whispered a silent thank you, holding his father's words close. A treasure greater than gold, a blessing that would never fade. As the shadows lengthened across the palace grounds and the first stars began to shimmer in the gathering dusk, Solomon felt the stirrings of a longing deep within him. A quiet desire for peace he could not command with all his wisdom or wealth. For a while he wandered the silent gardens, listening to the hush that settled over the land, the gentle chorus of crickets, the distant lull of the city drifting into rest. He paused beside a still pool, its surface reflecting the spangled sky. Solomon closed his eyes and bowed his head. For all that he had built and all he had learned, there remained a hunger in his spirit, a longing not for knowledge or greatness, but for true rest, for calm at the center of his being. In that stillness, Solomon offered a silent prayer. He did not speak in grand words or royal proclamations, but in the language of the heart. "O God, you see what no one else sees. You know every longing, every weakness, every joy. I have searched high and low for meaning and peace, yet so often they slip away like water through my hands." He breathed out slowly, letting go of burdens he could no longer carry, opening himself to something greater than his questions. In the quiet of that moment, his prayer was simple and honest. "Let me find rest, not just for my body, but for my soul. Give me a peace that stays, even when all else changes." The wind stirred softly, carrying the scent of earth and blossoms. Solomon felt the calm settle deep inside, not as an answer to every question, but as a gift freely given to a heart open and seeking. Perhaps you too are longing for such peace tonight. Solomon's prayer became a silent echo for all who search, a gentle hope that, in the silent places of our lives, we may encounter a presence greater than ourselves and discover the quiet blessing of rest. He lingered by the pool as the dusk folded gently around him, feeling just a moment of stillness, as if his soul was held and heard. And in that holy silence, Solomon found again the wish that lived deepest in his heart, to know the peace that only a quiet prayer can bring. As night wrapped the palace in velvet quiet, Solomon sat in gentle reflection beneath the wide open sky. He looked back over the puzzles his mind had chased, the longing for wisdom, the search for meaning, the questions that returned with every dawn. In this softness of evening, another gentle truth came to him. Wisdom and happiness are not always the same. He spoke quietly, more to his heart than to the stars. "All my searching, all my understanding has given me sight to see much, joy and sorrow, beauty and suffering. Yet wisdom is a lantern that makes the shadows clearer. It shows the puzzles, but does not always bring contentment. Solomon let the moment stretch, thinking of those who seemed happy with only simple things: a loaf of bread shared, sunlight on their faces, laughter around a table. He envied, in a tender way, the untroubled happiness born of trust and the willingness to find enough in what the day brings. He pondered, is happiness a gift given to the simple? Or is it something even the wise must learn, step by step, like a child learning to walk? The more he observed, the more he understood that deep wisdom often brings humility, a softness that bows before things not fully understood. Perhaps wisdom knows the limits of questions. Perhaps happiness grows in places where the heart lets go and simply accepts. A child running through the garden, a worker pausing at day's end, a friend's voice in the dark. Solomon turned his thoughts gently toward you as well. Have you ever felt the difference? The quiet peace that settles in when you stop searching and begin receiving, even if just for a little while? Do you find, as Solomon did, that the wisest understanding can still leave an empty space that only love, trust, or a shared moment can fill? He rested there beneath the stars, grateful for wisdom, but longing for happiness that slips in quietly, humble, simple, and true. In that longing, a new kind of wisdom dawned, that the heart finds rest not in knowing everything, but in receiving the small, bright joys scattered through each day and night. Solomon leaned back, letting the coolness of the night air settle over his shoulders. The lanterns flickered along the palace walls, casting long shadows that danced softly around him. In the gentle darkness, he faced a hard truth, whispered first to himself, and now released into the silence. No matter how much I learn, no amount of wisdom can keep sorrow away, he admitted, the words drifting like leaves in a slow-moving stream. Knowledge sheds light on many things. It shows the patterns, reveals reason, uncovers secrets, but it cannot block out grief. It cannot shelter the heart from all pain. He remembered the tears he had seen, his own and those of others, sorrow in the faces of mothers, loss in the eyes of friends, loneliness beneath laughter at royal feasts. Wisdom opened his eyes to each wound, but it could not close them again. Turning his hands over in his lap, Solomon felt the smallness of even a great king. To know more is often to feel more, he murmured, voice gentle and tired. Sometimes I have wondered if the price of understanding is the depth of every ache. He raised his head, gazing at the vast sky, scattered with silent stars. Is it wrong to wish the wise were shielded from heartbreak? Or is suffering stitched into wisdom itself? A companion on the journey, making every joy, every kindness, every hope more sacred. Maybe you too have felt this, the way wisdom magnifies both joy and sorrow. How understanding can make beauty richer, but pain sharper. Solomon pondered if, in the end, life's deepest wisdom was not to escape suffering, but to allow the heart to remain open, even when it hurts. He breathed in the stillness and found the courage to accept this truth. Wisdom does not take away the ache, Solomon whispered, but perhaps it teaches us how to walk beside it, gently, bravely, and with compassion for all who share our path. In the hush of the palace and the softness of the night, Solomon let his heart rest alongside his questions and his pain, feeling the bittersweet beauty of wisdom that does not protect from suffering, but helps him move through it with mercy and grace. Late in the night, when the palace grew especially still, Solomon wandered into a small, lamplit chamber where one of the oldest servants of the court sat quietly. This man, stooped with age and gentle in manner, had served Solomon's father and now moved through the palace with a wisdom all his own. Solomon sat beside him, both comfortable in the silence that old friends share. For a long while they listened to the soft crackling of the lamp, the night singing its low, patient song outside. At last, Solomon spoke softly. "You have seen many years, old friend. Tell me, How do you accept the limits of life, knowing you cannot fix every sorrow nor answer every mystery? The elder smiled, a kind, wrinkled smile that spoke of many winters and gentle acceptance. Majesty, I have learned that our hands are not made to hold everything, he replied. When we are young, we think if we try harder, reach farther, understand more, we can change the world. But as seasons pass, we discover there is honor not only in seeking and doing, but in letting go with peace. Solomon leaned in, listening with the eagerness of a son before his father. Do you regret what you could not hold on to? What slipped away as the years moved? The old man shook his head, eyes shining with kindness. No, my king. There is a time for striving, and a time for quiet. The more I surrender what is not mine to keep, the lighter I feel. I carry love, memories, the warmth of a shared meal, the words of friends. That is enough. Even kings have their limits. Even wise men cannot answer every question. Solomon breathed deeply, letting the simplicity of those words soothe him. So acceptance is not giving up, but making room for grace. The old servant nodded, his voice a gentle echo. Yes, and trusting that what matters most will remain with you, even as the world changes. Peace does not come from holding tighter, but from opening your hands, honoring what was, and welcoming what is yet to be. Together they sat in the soft lamplight, the weight of wisdom shared and lightened between them. Solomon felt comfort in the company of one who understood that limits are not curses, but invitations to rest in what truly lasts: love, presence, and acceptance, shaped quietly by time. Now, as Solomon's story slows, let me gently invite you to reflect along with him. Do you ever wonder about all that you carry? Dreams and worries, memories and hopes? How much of your heart is filled by things you wish you could change or moments you long to keep forever? It's a tender thing, this journey through life, collecting and sometimes learning to let go. Solomon, wise as he was, found peace not in holding everything tightly, but in learning what to keep close and what to release with gratitude. He learned to treasure simple joys, a friend's smile, a father's advice, the warmth of sunlight, but also to let slip the things that no longer served him or could never truly be his. Maybe tonight you want to think quietly about these things too. What have you gathered gently into your heart? Are there burdens you've carried that don't belong to you anymore? Are there memories or dreams that now ask to be cherished, or softly set down so your hands are free for new gifts? Even kings cannot keep the rush of years from flowing, nor hold every blessing in their grasp. Solomon's journey reminds us all that wisdom grows when we accept our limits and open our hands, making room for what is real, what is kind, what is meant for the season of life. So, as you settle into the softness of this night, take a gentle breath. You're allowed to rest. You are allowed to let go, and to trust that what is meant for your heart will remain. The rest can drift away quietly, carried kindly with the turning of time. Let that thought bring peace, for in learning what we carry and what we release, we step closer to contentment and into the embrace of a quieter, deeper joy. That night, long after voices had faded and even the servants had found their rest, Solomon walked alone through the silent halls of his great palace. The marble floors felt cool under his bare feet, and the faint echo of each step followed him in through spacious corridors hung with shadows and moonlight. He passed by grand rooms filled with treasures, scrolls, vessels of silver, carved works of art, each a sign of his labors, each now quietly untouched in the hush of night. Outside, the gardens lay peaceful, their paths silvered by the moon, the leaves unmoving beneath a velvet sky. Solomon paused before a window, placing his hand on the cool stone. He listened to the silence, thick and gentle, like a comforting cloak. The enormity of the palace pressed in around him, not as a triumph, but as a reminder of how alone wisdom can sometimes feel. His heart was heavy with the hush. All these walls, these riches, this vastness, he thought softly. Yet tonight, it is only me and the quiet. The night air stirred, carrying with it the distant memory of laughter, of voices in the courts, of music drifting through at once happy halls. For a moment, Solomon remembered being a child, hearing his father's singing echo through smaller rooms, feeling less alone within humbler walls. Now, the very greatness he had built felt weighty, accomplishment shadowed by solitude. He let himself feel it fully, the ache of work done, of years past, of dreams grown silent. Perhaps you know such nights too, when all that you've built stands around you, and yet your spirit longs for something softer, something kinder than all the world's achievements. Solomon lingered in the moonlit hall, letting the silence hold him. In the quiet, there was sadness, but there was also space for his soul to breathe, to rest, to hope again. And so he stood, simply and honestly, alone yet wrapped in the gentle company of the night, letting the palace and all its quiet witness his longing for peace. As the night deepened, Solomon settled onto a simple bench near one of the palace's silent fountains. All around him, the world seemed to hold its breath. No footsteps, no voices, only the soft drip of water onto worn stone and the distant sigh of wind. He rested his head in his hands, feeling the fatigue not just of the day, but of many years. "I am tired," he whispered into the darkness, voice trembling with honesty. Tired in body, yes, but deeper still, in heart, in spirit. All the questions, all the searching, they have left me weary. Solomon lifted his gaze to the stars above, their light gentle and patient. What is the rest my soul longs for? He wondered quietly. Even with comfort and wisdom, with gardens and peace, my heart aches for a kind of quiet that nothing here seems to give. He remembered the laughter of friends, the wisdom of elders, the open trust of children at play. For a moment, he wished he could set aside every heavy thought, every crown of responsibility, and simply dwell in that childlike ease again. A place where love and belonging were enough. And rest came naturally, like nightfall after a golden day. "Is it wrong to long for true rest?" he asked softly, as if the darkness itself might answer. "Is there a place where striving finally ends, where peace is more than a moment passing quickly by?" Perhaps you have felt this way too, a deep yearning for rest, not just for your body, but for all that stirs beneath. Solomon's words were not a complaint, but a gentle confession, shared for anyone who understands what it is to grow tired from carrying both blessings and burdens. He sat in the hush, letting silence comfort his tired soul. The night did not answer in words, yet there was peace in admitting his need, in setting down the weight for a while and simply being, quietly, without expectation. And in that stillness, Solomon's longing for true rest became a prayer, wordless and deep, floating between earth and stars, carried gently through the dark toward the first promise of morning. Time slipped by quietly as Solomon remained on the bench, watching the moon drift through the clouds above the silent palace. Thoughts of years past and years yet to come moved gently through his mind, like the slow turning of water in the fountain beside him. He reflected on the many seasons he had witnessed, seasons of laughter, of sorrow, of building and letting go. So much life between these walls, he mused, and yet nothing stays as it once was. People change, kingdoms rise and fade, even memories soften and blur around the edges. Solomon considered the legacy of his work, the gardens, the music, the judgments, and wisdom he'd given. He wondered what the future would make of these things. All that I have made, will it last? Will future generations remember my name kindly? Or will my choices drift away, folded into the silence of years? The uncertainty brought him a gentle humility. He realized that no one can ever truly know how their story will live on. Buildings crumble, stories are retold and sometimes forgotten. The world continues, and time, quiet and patient, softens everything it touches. Sighing, Solomon admitted to himself, "Perhaps it is not for us to decide how we are remembered. Perhaps the truest legacy is not written in stone or gold, but in the lives we touch, in small kindnesses, in love quietly given and received." He sat quietly, letting this thought move through him like a calming wind. For all his wisdom, even Solomon could not see past the veil of what comes next. It was enough, he decided, to live and love well in the moment given, to plant seeds of hope and goodness where he could, and to trust the rest to the slow, faithful movement of time. If you've ever wondered about your own legacy or what remains after you are gone, know that your kindness, your gentle words, your compassion, these linger much longer than you might ever see. Like Solomon in the quiet night, you can rest in the simple faith that even small acts of love ripple far beyond your days, touching corners of the world you will never know. In the softest hours before dawn, Solomon rose from the bench and walked slowly along the quiet corridors of his palace. The silence was gentle, not empty, and he found his thoughts drifting away from the grand and complicated, settling instead on the simplest wonders around him. He paused where a servant, dozing in a corner, had left a lamp burning low. The small flame flickered and cast warm shadows on the stone. Nearby, he noticed a tiny flower blooming in a crack near the wall, a splash of color breaking through the gray. Solomon felt his heart soften at these little things. How quietly the hand of God moves, he thought, weaving beauty into the unnoticed places, offering daily gifts I so easily overlook. He continued walking, passing a window where the earliest light brushed the horizon with the faintest gold. In the garden below, a bird began its morning song, a melody simple, yet in its own way perfect. The dewdrops on the grass, the gleam of fresh olive leaves, the kindness exchanged in a servant's hushed good morning. Each felt like a blessing that needed no explanation at all. Solomon stood still, opening his soul to this gentle truth. Not all wonders are large or complicated. Maybe, he whispered, meaning is hidden in the small, the quiet, the ordinary acts that fill my days. He let himself remember the laughter of children, the steadiness of old friends, the taste of bread shared at the table. He saw how the love and care given and received in these fleeting moments were threads that stitched all the days together. Perhaps tonight, you too can turn your eyes to the small blessings in your life. A kind word, a simple meal, the warmth of a safe place to rest. Sometimes the deepest meaning is found not in the distant or profound, but in recognizing the hand of God moving gently through the simple details that surround us every day. Solomon breathed this truth in deeply, letting it bring peace to his searching heart. He realized he did not need to know all the mysteries of the world to feel the sacredness of life. Sometimes, all that is needed is a quiet thank you for the beauty right here, quietly carrying us from one moment to the next. As the first beams of sunlight crept into the palace, Solomon felt a gentle shift in his heart. The questions that had burdened him through the night began to loosen their hold. He watched how light spilled quietly into the corners, warming stone, waking color, making even the dust dance in golden air. Slowly, he realized something important. Not every answer in life would be his to find. For so long he had searched for great meaning, believing it was hidden in wisdom or achievement, always just beyond reach. But standing in the dawn's embrace, Solomon felt the grace of letting go. He whispered softly, "Perhaps the point is not to know all things, but to be present to what is here." Maybe true meaning wasn't only waiting in the grand mysteries, but shining softly through each ordinary day, a smile from a passerby, the hush of early morning, the peace of a heart open to what comes. He took in the gentle sounds of servants beginning their work, the comfort of footsteps and voices sharing simple greetings. In these moments, there was belonging. There was enough. Solomon remembered a lesson from childhood, a story his father told about the manna that fell from heaven. It was just enough for each day, his father would say. If you tried to gather more, it slipped away. Trust the gift, Solomon, and it will be enough. Standing in the glow of morning, Solomon let these words settle in. Meaning did not have to be seized or explained. Sometimes it simply needed to be noticed, welcomed, and enjoyed. As you rest tonight or greet your own new day, perhaps this thought can find a quiet place in your heart. We don't have to solve every riddle or chase every answer. Sometimes the peace we long for is already present, woven into today, into the quiet moments that ask only to be lived and cherished. So Solomon breathed deeply, willing at last to accept that life, with all its questions and changes, could be good even without perfect understanding. And in that acceptance, he felt a quiet freedom, a sense that each small moment matters, and that beauty could be found not just in answers, but in learning to gently receive whatever this day holds. Solomon lingered in the peaceful light of morning, his heart steadier and softer than it had been through so many restless nights. He looked toward the horizon, where day and night touched, and let himself marvel at how beautiful a mystery could be. For so long, he had tried to chase away doubts with wisdom, to shine answers into every corner of his soul. Yet now, with the golden morning lighting all he could see, he felt the deep quiet of acceptance bloom within him. He thought gently, not everything must be understood for life to be full. Unanswered questions, silent places in the heart, fleeting moments of wonder, these are not empty, but rich with possibility. The world, Solomon realized, was alive with things precious, not because they could be explained, but because the beauty they could be experienced, treasured, and admired in their mystery. Breathing slowly, he watched the birds rise into the sky, watched the play of light and shadow moving through the garden. There is beauty, he whispered, in things that appear and then vanish, in hopes that are never quite named, in mysteries that remain after all searching is done. He let his soul become quiet and wide, able to hold the unknown with peace, just as dawn blends into day, just as yesterday flows gently into now. Life itself can be both question and comfort, uncertainty and song. Perhaps you too wonder about things that have no clear answer, and feel sorrow or longing in that uncertainty. Tonight, let Solomon's journey remind you, there is deep and gentle beauty in what we do not know. It opens the heart, invites awe, and helps us stay soft and present in the unfolding story of our lives. He smiled into the stillness, finally able to rest beside his questions, finding light in the sheer wonder of being part of something so much greater than words. In this mystery, and in every unspoken hope, Solomon found peace, not through answers, but in the freedom to love what he could not fully understand. As the sun rose quietly above the rooftops, Solomon stood by his window, feeling the warmth touch his face. The city below awakened with gentle sounds, footsteps in the courtyards, soft voices greeting the new day, the distant laughter of children echoing in the streets. In that early light, Solomon's heart was filled with gratitude for the long, winding journey he had traveled, not just through his kingdom, but through the hidden places of his mind and soul. For a while, he stood in silence, then spoke softly, knowing you walked with him in spirit. "Thank you for your company," Solomon whispered, almost as if you were beside him, sharing this quiet hour. "It is a comfort to be understood, even across distance and time. The questions we carry are never so heavy when we share them, and the path is gentler with a friend nearby." He thought of how you had listened to his worries and memories, his confessions and hopes. In all his searching, he had found quiet strength in the invisible presence of someone who truly cared. We travel together, you and I, through the landscapes of doubt and grace, through nights of questioning and mornings bright with new possibility. Solomon let the calm fill him. Wherever you are, I hope you feel this gentle blessing, that you are not alone in your search, nor in your longing for peace. Thank you for sharing this time, for holding my story in your heart, for letting your own questions meet mine beneath the shelter of these words. He remained by the window, letting his silent gratitude reach out to you as the day unfolded, for all the miles between, for all the differences in place and time. There was a sacred closeness in this shared journey, a companionship that lingers, warm and faithful, long after the last question has faded into light. Now, as the day opens before you, Solomon's journey lays its blessing gently at your feet. All the searching and pondering, the nights of silent wondering, and the hours of gentle acceptance gather now into a simple invitation, one meant for your own heart, wherever you may be. Come, rest a while, and let your spirit breathe. Allow the rush of questions to settle and the longing for answers to soften. What if, for today, it is enough to simply be present, to notice the quiet gifts, the warmth of morning light, the ease of your breath, the comfort of stillness? You are welcome to accept this moment as it is, without striving or explanation. Solomon found peace not by solving every mystery, but by embracing the mystery itself, by letting each moment become its own kind of answer. He would say to you now, gently, let yourself be here, in the grace of what is given. Release the need to figure out every step ahead. The present is a gift, precious, complete, holding all you need for now. Maybe this is the serenity we truly long for. Not a life without questions, but a heart able to rest in the beauty and simplicity of this day. You do not walk alone. In your quiet, you are blessed and held. So receive the peace that is offered, as Solomon once did. Open hands, open heart, trusting that what comes will be enough. May this gentle acceptance fill your evening or your morning, wrapping you in hope as you rest or as you begin again. And now, in the gentle hush of a story coming to its close, Solomon offers a quiet prayer, not just for himself, but for you and for all who long for peace as the day ends or begins. He bows his head in the softness of early light, words rising from the deep places of the heart, simple and full of care. O God, who sees our searching, who holds every question and every hope, bring rest to those who are weary tonight. Give comfort to the minds that will not quiet, and peace to the hearts that ache with longing. Let your calm fall like morning dew on every troubled spirit gathered here. May there be gentleness where anxiety once stirred, and warmth where loneliness had grown. May each soul who listens find safety in the silence and strength in letting go, discovering the silent presence that fills the spaces where answers are slow to come. Grant us all a night of true rest, or a day of quiet confidence. Shine softly on our dreams and our waking. Bless us with peace that flows deeper than words, and help us in your mercy to rise with hope for all that is yet to be. Solomon's prayer is softly given, without demand or expectation, a blessing carried on the breeze for any heart willing to receive it. As you breathe quietly, may you feel the gentle peace he wished for all who seek and all who simply long to rest. As the story draws to a close, let the quiet surround you like a soft blanket. Solomon's journey of wisdom and wandering, of questions and gentle acceptance, comes now to a peaceful pause. The palace is silent, the gardens restful under the touch of evening or the calm of morning, and your heart, too, is invited to rest. Wherever you are, take a slow breath, letting any burdens you carry slip gently from your shoulders. Know that in each moment of stillness, there is care for you. Care found in a whispered prayer, in shared words, in the hope that tomorrow holds. Solomon would bid you a tender farewell, with gratitude for your company and gentle encouragement for the days ahead. May your sleep be deep and healing, and your waking filled with new light. May you walk forward knowing you are not alone, and that grace follows you into every moment yet to come. If peace has found you here tonight, let it stay as long as you need. Carry a little hope with you as you drift into sleep or as you rise to greet the day. And if you feel the desire, remember, you're always welcome to return for another gentle story, another quiet evening together. Thank you for sharing this journey. Rest well, dear friend, and let kindness and hope fill all your tomorrows.